Hey there, Twitch TV and YouTube. We're going to be talking about Diablo 3's Crusader, and we'll be talking also, in general, about the expansion Reaper of Souls.
Thank you for coming here.
There isn't a lot of organization to this broadcast. I'm going to go into this little area here so it's quiet. Actually, I'm not going to go into that area. Okay, real quick. The Crusader. I like the chick Crusader because she's a chick, and I like chicks. I'm not weird or anything. Okay, I'm weird. So there's a few things that you'll notice right off the bat. The first thing you'll probably explore, just because it's an easy thing to do when you're in town,
I have some new items that I'm certain you'll love.
Is that there's a new crafter, artisan, whatever you want to call them. Transmogrify allows you to take a piece of gear with an animation and change its model appearance. You can change it between sword, a whole variety of different styles too, which I think is a little bit overkill. If you're wearing a sword, you should only be able to change it into swords, but that's my own personal opinion, and they decided to go further with that than I would have. So that's cool. Enjoy. You can change our armor models. Change helmets. You can change... Actually, these were armor models also. And you can make them look basically any way you want. This is actually kind of cool, like noblewoman look. I'm fairly happy with what I've got. And you've also got this, which is where the other thing is just aesthetic. Even though it costs you, it's a drain. This is actually what gets stuff done. So basically what you get to do is you get to pick one of these modifiers, and this is the one that I would change on this. Well, maybe I wouldn't change it because it doesn't really do anything else that is better. So keeping the 30 gold is alright. You have a sort of thorn stuff that you can do, but considering the damages in this game, this is very minimal. In a Diablo 2 game, this would probably be like 3 damage. I figured this game is times 1,000. It's Diablo 3 times 1,000. Or Diablo 2 times 1,000. And nearly everything functions on a multiple scale of 1,000. Each slot rolls from a group, and then they give you the ability to reselect and re-roll from that group. For instance here, I should probably keep re-rolling this one until I get life on hit. Let's try it and see if I get lucky, just so you can see what it looks like. And 30,000. It's high, but it's not obnoxious, and it's a fairly cheap roll too, resource-wise. No. So let's roll it again. There we go. Let's try to do this with all my gear. Does this give me life per hit? Nay. Nay. Okay. Let's throw my ring in there. Oh, I've already rolled it.
The prophet did not mention
It actually is
how boring
useful,
it
and
can
you will start looking at items that you would have considered junk items much differently. Okay, this one has that. Now, I don't really like wasting this resource, so I might not want to do that now. How about L Amulet? How about this one? Nay. Okay. Let's try my boots. These are high-level boots, so I guess what I was going for here was armor, to get that up to a potential 900-ish. We'll just take the chance and roll it. Nope. I don't use any of those, so I don't really care. I'm not going to be able to roll this, but we'll just see what it does. Can make it indestructible. That's a good one. Okay, well I want to keep everything that I got. I suppose I could hope to get lucky and re-roll this into... as you see, I only have 2 of those resources that I can re-roll this with, so I'm not that interested in it. Let me go back to this one. Just to see if there's anything interesting it does. Right now I'm getting 60%, maybe more, gold, and I think I'm just going to keep that. Oh, I didn't look at my gloves. Okay, let's... Oh, I can't roll the fire skill one? Really? That's sort of surprising. Okay, let's try this. Of course, it takes that resource again that I don't want to use. Okay, we can get resistance to elements. Armor, critical, regenerate, critical, area damage, life per hit. You know, I'm going to roll this one. I'm going to take the chance and roll it. Actually, let's see what this one does, because that resource costs 1. Okay, this resource one is the better one. The better variety. I'm pretty much okay with everything except level reduced. I don't want the stun on hit. I don't want the gold and health pickup. But I'd take pretty much any one of those other ones. Wait a minute, I thought I saw life on hit in here. And armor. Yeah, there we go. I'm not the brightest or sharpest. Okay, let's take a chance. Ooh. Now I have to consider. Now I have to think. What one do I want? Another 100. Really, fire is the only thing that's scary, and I've got a pretty good amount of that. Where's my life on hit right now? 2,000. So that'll get me up close to 4,000. I think that makes more difference, ultimately, than the
Should I find some
resistance.
new attire? These old things are becoming so small.
Alright. I didn't totally waste everything on that. Let's see what we got for this, what our choices are. None. Unless I want to try to re-roll this to get 7%. You just kind of live with it, don't you? This one here, I believe this one actually does have something I want. And I might have even tried it once and just didn't get what I was looking for. Yeah, that last mod actually has a lot of stuff, but nothing I want. Yeah. This bombardment one, I can get armor out of it. Jeez. Throw 600 armor onto that. Chance to block. Crit chance, which is good, and I need. Almost to 10%. These are very high rolls here. Or a socket. That socket would be pretty disgusting considering that it doesn't have any resistances on it, so as a shield it sort of needs that. Wish I could re-roll that Blessed Shield Ricochets one to another skill, because I just don't use it. So there's a high probability that you're just going to roll other skills with this. A very high probability. So to re-roll this for those resistances or armor or socket, I guess in critical hit, there's 4 now that I want. The chance to block would be okay. I wouldn't, jump off a bridge because I got that. But nearly everything else I don't want. So I'm not going to roll that, because until I have, a whole pile of stuff like this in my inventory, I'm not going to re-roll this one. Right now I want to... Did I look at this yet? One thing I can do is I could try to re-roll 3 sockets on this one. But as you see, it's using that semi-finite resource. Life after each kill. Okay, nothing here that I want. This will probably be the stuff that I do want. No, I don't want any of those either. No. The only thing I would really try to do with this one is try to get lucky and re-roll for sockets. Try to get that 3rd socket. And since it's a rare item, I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm going to just try to get lucky and find something. Okay, so you've gotten an idea of what's going on, and I just made my character a little bit better in the process. Let's see what the cost is on this one. I'm going to roll this one more time. Okay, I'm going to roll it one more time again. Give me armor. Okay, I'm gonna roll it one more time. This is how gambling works, and this is why I don't buy lottery tickets and I don't gamble for any reason. Let's try one more. Now I'll try one more. There we go. Got the armor. Not bad. I really like this ability.
I
You know,
have some new
just by
items that
nature, I'm
I'm
kind of bitchy, so I'd rather have a little bit more opportunities to do it. The resources just get sucked up really fast. This artisan obviously has some new crafting stuff that they can do too. Very high level stuff. That's all. But in all honesty, you're going to find it too. You're going to be able to find the stuff that you're going to be able to craft. Really what you're using the crafter for is to deal with unique item slots. Now another thing, besides, you know, the new classes of items to deal with the Crusader, is uniques have a completely different method now, where they roll, and they roll with the general odd randomness that we experienced before, but they're a little bit more reliable. They give you the base skill that you're after a lot of the time than before, when it was almost like 95% chance that you don't find your base skill. Now it's completely flipped the other direction. Now it's about a 95% chance that you do find the base skill. You hardly ever see the other skill stats. Like, you know, I never find dex or int. Maybe 5% of the time I find that stuff, which is fine. There's other ways of getting that kind of gear for your character. Like if I wanted to gear my my enchantress with intelligence gear, I'll just play my wizard and collect, as I'm doing here. Where is it? Yeah, I have a Templar set up for one of my other characters, for my wizard actually, so that when I go into play with my wizard next time, I'll just go into my inventory and grab this gear straight out of the inventory. Actually, that shield's not going to be in there very long. I just decided to do this last night. They'll probably actually get this shield first. If this whole set here actually functioned inside the merc, then I would give the merc this set. You know, the Cormac or whatever his name is. But back to what I was talking about with the uniques, is they roll. You can find pretty much any unique anywhere, it seems like. My buddy Leonidas found a weapon that I have a level 70 version of at level 8. So what happens is they just roll really low mods, and they might roll like one less mod. So unique legendaries are really interesting now. Very sought after. As you see, I've found a whole bunch, and in order to get resources, I've sold all the duplicates, and I've had a lot of duplicates come through here. This one here, homing pads, I've found like 4 of these. Which one was it? Gung, I can't even say it. It's like a tongue twister, but it's like not my tongue. It's something in the back of my throat that doesn't let me say this. Blah. So I've found 4 or 5 of these. It's obviously common. I found them very early. As you can see, the highest level one I found was level 27. It is possible I had a higher level one, and I burned it to try to get that resource that I need, the legendary resource. So I had this entire inventory full and this inventory half full of legendaries, and I was getting rid of them as I was going. So you find them all over the place. Very reliable, that you're going to find 2 or 3 in a setting. You might even find a dozen in a setting. Certain places are almost a guarantee that you'll find one. There's new resource stuff which you're going to deal with. These are crafting recipe things. The gems go up to a pretty high level. I'll run down to the gem guy so that you can see what the higher level gems look like. And they do pretty good helper. They get pretty high now. The ruby is the one that I've got the highest one. I've got a royal ruby. I believe this is the highest it goes. 220 strength. So throwing a couple of these rubies into here, and coupled with a skill that I have, I could actually get a ridiculous amount, a couple thousand, just off of the gear, just off of putting things in sockets. Maybe not a couple thousand. I don't know, maybe. I know I counted 10, so that's 2,200. So I can get 2,200 strength, or not quite 2,200, probably somewhere around 1,800 or 1,600 strength, just off of sockets. The Crusader herself. What am I looking for? Okay, this. Crusader herself is has got some problems in the build. Like, it says it has zeal, but when you look at the zeal, it's just like, that's not zeal. Don't even call that zeal. I'm not a big fan of Punish. I played around with it. It's slower attack speed than Wrath, or at least it feels slower. Or Slash, I mean. Smite. I'm not interested in throwing chains at stuff. I think that's a, well, I'm not against it. I just don't like it. It doesn't feel paladin-y, or, which is what this character is. And here's your ranged hammer throw. So Thor would like this ability. Just throws the hammer out, and some of them can become guided. Hammer of Pursuit. Holy Bolt. It's a pretty low number. And this is a traditional thing. Is, you know, this character came out and was released with all the nerfs on, and they should start unnerfing some of this stuff. I use Crush just to get that extra critical range. My character is suffering from critical chance. Badly, actually. I had that up to 12. I don't know what I did. Yeah, I have no idea what I did. Life per hit, you see I was going for that, but ultimately it's not. Ultimately it's not that amazing. Because I've got, wait a second, I had 500, I had 800, oh yeah, 580, that is right, okay. I don't know where I got 800,000 from. 580,000 hit points. Let's kind of just think about that for a minute. Life per hit, 3,714. So if I hit 10 enemies, I'm getting 30,000. that doesn't seem like it's even going to be noticeable. And when I had it at pretty high, I still didn't notice it. I get 16,000 life per hit from this skill, but the main problem is the attack speed. That is just not enough. That's the fastest attack that I can find. And sure, I can go into a mob. Oh, I don't want that. Get out of here. I can go into a mob and do this, and I'll be able to get a reasonable amount of hits that way. But ultimately, I'm not afraid of a whole pile of minions. A whole pile of minions is not going to kill me. What's going to kill me is the big tough stuff that's going to be alive after all the minions are dead, and I can't life on hit fast enough. So this slash ability probably needs to get changed to something more like Diablo 2 Zeal. Maybe not 7 hits a turn, maybe it starts out with 3 or 4, and then you have a rune that gives you an extra 3. The monk has an ability called Way of the 100 Fists, which is great. You can have somewhere around 3,000 life on hit, and you can see your life actually going up while you're using it, because she's a flurry hitter. Well, I say she, some people have male ones. I like the chick one, she's cooler looking. The Crusader does not have a real reliable way of gaining life, as far as I've seen. This consecration, 8,000 life per second, so literally it's going to take over a minute for me to get my life back by using this. Maybe there's a rune that increases the... Oops. Maybe there's a rune that increases it. Yeah, this one. 12,000. So still, you know, figure that out. That's 30 seconds to heal me up to full health. And this thing only lasts... Oh, I'm sorry. This thing only lasts 10 seconds. So I'm only gonna get about a third of my life from this. Maximum. And that's like in the greatest situation. So the Crusader really suffers from getting life back. You will use a lot of potions using the Crusader. So the nerf stick already got its dulling on the Crusader before it was even released. All the other characters got huge amount of nerfs, which is sort of bizarre because when you look at the Diablo 3 community and you talk to the Diablo 3 players, the stuff that they said needed to change, Blizzard went and did the opposite for almost all the characters. They added longer cooldowns. They added obnoxiously long cooldowns. So to me it seems like they don't want people to play the game for more than just screwing around. They want the majority of the people to hate it and go away. They want you to buy it and then get pissed off and quit. That's the way that they're building some of these characters. So if they want, you know, and that's a problem because, you know, this game is supposed to be fun, and the way that they treat the game is anti-fun. The areas, the monsters, the AIs, the graphics are all very good. I have a big problem with this fog that's on everything. I wish that I could turn this fog off and just have a light radius. They refuse to do that, and I don't know why. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I know that the graphics guys, they really enjoy looking at, you know, the really lush, wonderful graphics they made, and they like to see it in big full screen, you know, panorama or whatever. But this is worse. Just make a light radius and make it dark outside of the light radius when it's dark out. I know that there's a screen intercept that changes some of that, and I've been tempted to try it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I know that a while back there was a debate on whether it interfered with the TOC agreement, and some people say no because even though it does intercept the stream, it doesn't intercept it the way that they say you can't intercept it. For instance, if I wanted to have an overlay of my name on the game, I can do that, and really Blizzard can't say very much about it so long as it's not transmitting anywhere or interfering with their communication with my computer. But I'm not a legalese guy, so I'm not going to talk about that, and it's really not important to me. What I'm criticizing is not what you can do with the game. I'm criticizing the way that they package the game. The biggest suggestion I would go for is take the Frenzy Shrine and take the Fleeting Shrine and cut the values in half that you get from them and add that to the baseline of all characters. And maybe you get 1% every few levels of attack speed, and or these Paragon things could possibly get a little bit more help than they're getting. Like the help could maybe come a little sooner, or there could be a baseline of 10% increased attack speed and 10% movement speed just right off the top, and then raise the cap to 30% in the game, and that would make the game feel a lot better. Some of the skills that give you attack speed and movement speed make a significant difference, so maybe turn that significant difference down a tiny bit, so that overall, you know, maybe the max that you'll get is somewhere around 50%, and that's including skills and items. It's lower than that now. It seems to be around 35%. So if you could achieve an extra 15% speed on the attacks and an extra 15% speed on running, that would be awesome. That would make the game feel a lot better. One of the problems I have with the two shrines, mainly the movement shrine, is there is a natural thing that people do when playing a video game, and this is just broken how the brain works type of stuff, and those shrines actually cause me physical pain, because when the shrine wears off, I press the button harder to move. This is natural. It's something that had been observed back in the days of arcade games in the 70s and 80s, is that people will press the buttons harder when they're not getting the feedback that they're desiring. Even though the button is either on or off, it's a switch, your brain thinks push harder because it'll make me go faster. That's the way it works in the real world. So subconsciously, you know, you'd hear people tell people that, you know, like, hey, you don't have to mash the buttons like that, man. But that's just how people think, you know, like, get over there, and they squeeze the controller harder, or they press the button harder. So you shouldn't have movement speed wear off. You shouldn't have bursts like that, where, you know, like a couple seconds is okay, but to actually have it last a minute or two gets people used to the speed, and then you take the speed away, and you know, that's just something that they need to think about intellectually, instead of you know, basically I think that what they do is they have the game on paper, and they look at the game on paper, and they don't look at the game in relation to a player. And it's like a calculator. They're playing with a calculator to figure out what's going on, and they make their decisions based on this calculus, and none of them are good mathematicians anyway. You know, they might claim to be good mathematicians, and if they are good mathematicians, then they should get a job as a mathematician and not as a programmer. And programmers should be musicians or artists, because then they work towards eloquence and things like that. And ergonomics. This game is lacking ergonomics. Diablo 2 was very ergonomic. It was very easy to play. It was very friendly on your...
One time, I miscast the charm spell, and Sister Lysa was fawning over me for a fortnight.
You know, they had to turn that down because it's distraction. Somebody's talking, and I'm talking. the Diablo 2 was a very ergonomic game. It didn't stress you to play it. You might have gotten stressed because of the situation in the game, but you didn't get stressed because you're slow. Even though my paladin in Diablo 2 is running at the base speed, the slowest speed, because I just don't have any increased movement speed on him. That's just a flaw in the way that I built him. That's my fault. I could get his speed significantly higher very easily. So there needs to be a little bit of a change of perspective when it comes to how the game feels. They don't seem to care how the game feels to the player, aside from this thing that they always say, where that when you hit something, you want it to feel visceral, like a visceral reaction. I'm gonna hit it, screen shakes a little bit, monsters fly apart. Yeah, all that stuff's in the game, but they say quality of life. Well, there is no life inside of this game. It's a bunch of data. The quality of life is out here. It's how people press the buttons. It's how their perception of the game feels to them. And this has some good quality of life things, and it has some very negative quality of life things. Last night I played for several hours with a friend of mine, trying to help him get up to level 60 or level 70. And now, right now, after sleeping, the muscle that connects to my index finger is sore because my character's too slow. It's literally 20% too slow. When my buddy does his barbarian sprint thing, it feels good. That feels like whereabouts I wish my character ran normally. I understand that if she ran faster, that much faster with the sprint ability, if she was already running that fast, then that might be too fast. Or getting to be too fast for the graphics. It might start making frame rate issues for people that have computers that should be able to handle everything that this game throws at it. I just think that the characters should get to those higher speed levels more naturally. Like the sprint ability probably should not do the sprint, or maybe get rid of it completely, but it should be a little slower. The slash for ultimately I'm saying that sprint should cap out where it's capping out. It just needs you need to be faster to start with. You need more attack speed to start with. And I don't think that the attack speed is as much of an issue as the movement speed. The movement speed is an issue. Those two shrines are going to cause people physical pain, because when they wear off, you're going to try harder to get that back. Another 12% attack speed on this character would be probably get her just to where I feel like it's comfortable. Another 20% run speed, I think, would get my character to where it's comfortable. Like this slash, for instance, it needs, because of the life on hit paradox, you need to have more hits. There's no basic skill that hits faster. Not significantly faster, maybe a little faster. Like this Justice has a hammer that splits and hits other enemies, and that'll give you the perception of having more attacks, but it's not really more attacks, but it'll give you the perception and the life hit of having more attacks. So there is a little bit better attack speed than this. But the Zeal is like a joke. Like, really? I have to build up 5%. Like, I can't even notice that. To be honest with you, I've gone around, I've tried it, and I don't notice any difference in attack speed, because 5% is almost non-noticeable. You need to get up around 9% to have a noticeable difference. And for the little infinitesimal amount of time that this works, I suppose that if it was building up to 10% and I was running around killing stuff, I might actually notice that. But I would have to literally continuously hit with my basic skill to get this to actually be any kind of use. And that means that I can't stop hitting with this. And do other things. I have to just continuously hit with this to maintain that 5% extra attack speed. You know, so this is stupid. This skill slash should be Zeal. It should be switched to Justice, so it's one of the higher level attacks. So you don't get this until, you know, in your level 40s or level 30s or whatever. And these,
I waited 1,500
you know,
years
should
for this.
reflect
Should I return to my slumber?
a Zeal attack. I don't know if people are talking about this on that level or not. I don't know. But that's my sort of biggest complaint about this class, is the basic skills just don't feel interesting. They don't feel good. 3 of my friends have all told me the same thing. The main attack sucks, and so I went and played my barbarian because it felt better than this character does. You know, this is for Blizzard because I know that they don't play Diablo games. They play WoW. Everybody from Blizzard comes from WoW, and they think from a WoW perspective. So I'm gonna give them a little diatribe on the Paladin, and this is the way the Paladin works in Diablo 2. You have Zeal. The Zeal doesn't do any special enormous damage or anything like that. If you're in an 8-player game with a well-built Paladin that is built to do Zeal, you're not gonna plow through enemies like crazy. You're gonna be relying on those guys behind you to kill them. But that's fine, because you're gonna be running in there with a reasonable amount of leech. And I'm not talking about a character with all the rune words and stuff and an exile shield, because of course that character is going to be completely gross. They're going to be life tapping everything. What I'm talking about is a normally built character. You know, maybe you're wearing one of the sets, or you're just wearing, you know, a random selection of uniques. You're going to run up to that mob and you're going to Zeal everything. But you're not going to die because you're going to be leeching so hard that you're going to be fine. You're going to be able to survive being the tank. And then people are going to be raining stuff down on you. You know, if you're playing solo, you will do better because it's not going to be, the monsters aren't going to be as fat, but you are going to be one of the slower killers in the game because Zeal doesn't do that much damage. It's all physical damage, unless you have a weapon that does a bunch of elemental damage. For the most part, most of the good weapons for the Paladin, the melee weapons, are all physical damage. They don't have the big elemental damage on them like the rune words. So you're gonna be sitting there chopping away through the enemies, you know, very slowly. Everybody else kills stuff faster than a melee paladin. And paladin really has to rely on casting on top of their zeal. So as a paladin, a solo paladin, you would run up, you would start zealing the enemies, and while you're zealing the enemies, you're going to be flipping out hammers, and you don't need to have level 35 hammers to do well. Those hammers do a lot of damage at level 20. Those hammers do a lot of damage at level 10. So against a pile of minions, throwing out a low-level hammer is going to do you just fine. You're going to get your AoE damage that you're looking for, and you're going to be zealing and keeping yourself alive and gaining your resources back so you can keep pumping hammers out. This game, the resource regeneration is really low. It's like 3 per hit. So it's very, you know, you can use a passive that'll get that up to 5 per hit. But it's a really slow, arduous deal. Like, I have to hit 25 times to get my resource up, and that's not a lot of hitting going on. If I've got a big pool of monsters in front of me, then I can do that. And generally I will get my resources back before I actually kill them, because I need them. I need the monsters there to get my resources back. So the implementation of the Crusader, the skill selection that they decided to go with of the Crusader, they get a flat D- on it. And the only reason why I give them a D- is because they used Blessed Hammer and they actually didn't screw it up. It doesn't do the obnoxious crazy damage that it does in the other game, but that's cool. It actually does do very good damage, and you will have a lot of fun playing a Blessed Hammer build. You will have fun playing Fist of the Heaven build. They didn't screw up Fist of the Heaven. But from what and the sweep attack is actually pretty decent too, even though it's not what we would see in a Paladin, and that's fine. Like, this isn't a Paladin, it's a Crusader. It's not supposed to be the exact same thing as a Paladin. It's supposed to have new, fresh abilities. But they got rid of a very necessary function of the Paladin in this class. This class has a huge gap in resource regeneration. They can't get their resources back, and they can't get their life back in any reasonable manner. And you know, the numbers look obnoxious when you look at them, but in practice they don't get you anything that you need. When you're fighting the Death Angel guy at the end of the game, you're thinking potions and the wells. You're not thinking, you know, hey, this is cool, I can tank. You can't tank. It's impossible to tank him with a Crusader. You don't have the ability to gain life that fast. Even if you spam all of the life regeneration stuff into the action, you're not gonna get it back. You're not even gonna notice it because it's just so pathetically low. You know, it looks great, but when you consider your character is gonna have 600,000 hit points, it's not getting you anything that you need. It's gonna confuse people because they're used to having 30 to 50,000 life. But that's not the case. You know, they went and added a decimal point to the hit points in this game. So those huge numbers you see are actually 10% of what you think they are in relative terms. You know, we can't really ask them to reboot the entire character, but there are a lot of wasted skills in this game, on this character especially. There's a bunch of stuff here that just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, I'm supposed to want to lose life so that I can get more armor. That's counterintuitive. What is Nephilim Glory? I can't... Oh, what? What is Nephilim Glory? I don't know. I'll figure it out later. Apparently I don't use it. Or it's something else that I don't know about. Yeah, as slow as I am, I'm actually using the attack speed stuff, and I've got all the attack speed stuff on. It's not the individual attack, it just needs, instead of tag, that would be, that's what it needs to be. Like the monk does it, you know, the barbarian whirlwinds around like a maniac. Well, I guess that's a spender. But it seems like everybody else gets to benefit from better skills. I'm rambling now. Let's talk about the actual world. You have this stuff here, which is, these are bounties. So what they did is they and this is something the community told them to do. So you can't give Blizzard too much credit for this, because they were effectively ordered by the community and beaten over the head until they finally went and did this. And this is the adventure mode, which is sort of your end game. Like, you're gonna play a normal beginning to end campaign, and then this game mode opens up for that class, and now you can go anywhere in the world that you intended to go. And they got rid of the difficulty levels. You don't have to play through normal, nightmare, hell, and inferno, or to get to inferno. The way that difficulties work, I can't show you that because I'm still in game. Is that you actually just turn the difficulty levels up, and when you get to the 5th one, which is torment, there's 6 levels of torment, and that's where the real bonuses kick in. If you're playing in normal, hard, or whatever the 3rd one is, I guess there's 4 difficulties: normal, hard, something, and torment. Maybe it's very hard. You're not going to get any bonus from hard until torment. And torment is where the higher bonuses, the higher legendary find kicks in. In normal, you get no bonuses. In hard, and the second hard one, you get increased gold and experience. And the monsters are a lot harder. So I'd recommend if you had a bunch of characters from prior to this patch, or prior to this release, what you're going to want to do is play in normal until you re-gear most of your item slots. Basically, you're going to want a new weapon, and you're going to want at least 3 or 4 pieces of armor before you can move on to hard. And then when you get to hard,
I imagine that
it's
the
going to
hero
feel
of
a bit
prophecy would
like
be more
like a 3-player game did, or a 2-player game did back in prior to this release. So the bounties, essentially what's happening here is you do all 5 bounties and then you come back and talk to Tyrael, and Tyrael gives you what amounts to a resplendent chest reward. That's the best way to compare it. It might be better than a resplendent chest. It might be more like a treasure seeker reward. I haven't found any legendaries in that reward yet, but that doesn't mean that they don't appear. I just haven't found any there. And you can do this for each act.
We seek the sacred tomes
So if I
that were
wanted,
stolen by
if I wanted to,
Bishop Lazarus.
if I was a little tougher and I didn't want to play around in the lower acts where the AIs are a little easier to deal with,
prophecies of the end
and
times.
the monsters
Without them, we
don't
are
have the
lost.
really obnoxious hit point levels that they do in Westmarch, then I can play in
And we will
Trishul.
survive 1,000 more if we must. But
And
the
you
tomes will
don't have to
return
do the bounties. You can just run around in the world and do whatever. There are some things missing, and there are some things that are different in this mode. For instance, when you're in Act 2, Chaldeum, is that what it's called? When you're in Act 2, you'll notice that when you go into the little town that's down at the ground level, you're like in the hidden camp that's up on the hill. When you go down into the town, there's monsters down there now. There's no town and no merchants to deal with when you're in adventure mode. And it's like nighttime. So they did change the game. It's not exactly the same game as it was before. There's actually a lot of little differences. Some things you won't notice and some things you will. There's some quest stuff that's missing and replaced by just a spam of monsters, and then there's some, other stuff. Like, there isn't any more quests. You're not going to run into any of that. There might be little world events that you'll run into, like these little cursed chests and cursed shrine events, which are pretty cool. But essentially the game functions the same as it does when you're out in combat. It's pretty much laid out the same. One cool thing is that the cutscenes, all of those obnoxious cutscenes, are gone in adventure mode. They need to work on that polish a little bit, because it does the cutscene transitions, but it skips the thing. So you got about a second worth of pan and cut, and then you're back, and then the action kicks in. So they need to figure out a way of getting rid of that pan and cut, and just have it, because it does screw up the fluidness of it, it seems sort of amateurish. Like it's like auto escaping, as opposed to just scripted out. And maybe in a patch in the future they'll get rid of that. You know, for instance, Magda. When you walk into Magda or the Butcher, the cutscene goes and the monster goes and says some stuff, and it's about a 10-second little cinema that you have to watch. So this doesn't do that, but it still starts the cut. Like when you get the zoom in and the fade back, you still see those. So they need to get rid of those camera transitions, and then they'll be fine. Overall, I think that Blizzard has improved the game dramatically, but at the same time, they've also implemented the annoying things in the game, the things that people are critical of, more drastically than they were before. So they fixed a lot of things, but they screwed over a lot of things harder. Like people were saying you need to do this, and they went and did the opposite, and went in the opposite direction that I think the community wanted. So you got to really kind of think, like they get a C or a C minus, maybe a D on this release, and that's basically because the character feel and the character implementation is more important than world exploration and new items. And those things are important, and they did a good job on them.
Should I return to my slumber?
I understand philosophically what they want out of those aspects of the game, so I'm not, just because I have a personal difference with how that should be presented. They have a different philosophical idea of how it should be presented. For instance, I don't think that every item on my character has to have strength. I wish that there wasn't any stats except for occasional stats on items. It shouldn't be necessary, but they believe that that's the opposite, that they wanted that, and that's okay because this is their game and they're allowed to do that. They get, in order for, like in that vein of what they're doing, they get a high marks because they did actually improve that aspect of the game. You find items that are upgrades regularly. The items look like potential upgrades. You have to examine them more often than you did before. You don't just look at that what do you call it? The whoa! I don't want to press that. You know how it tells you -7%. You don't necessarily believe what you're seeing on that. You want to really look at the item and see if it actually is not giving you what you want. And a lot of the things that you're going to find are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of an upgrade. So you spend a little bit more time, and you're going to show more interest in the items. You're not just going to, you know, sort of blasé plow through them, selling them off. So the itemization, which is not a word, but the itemization of the game is a B+ improvement.
Lorath,
It's not an A+
I haven't heard from the
improvement.
Haradrim
It's
we
a B+
sent to the Skovos
improvement.
Isles.
And I don't think that they're ever going to get an A.
I hate
on
to
that.
think that any more of our order could come to harm.
I think that they're going to settle
All of us
somewhere
know the
where
risks,
they're at
Terry,
now, and there's
but
probably
we
going to be a
believe
few
in the
more
new Haradrim.
sort of tweaks and maybe a couple more mods that'll start popping up. That stuff I think that they're going to shelve, they're going to collect and shelve, and that's going to wait for the next expansion, which is going to come in about a year. And that'll be the final expansion. So they're not going to just jump into the game and start fixing a whole bunch of stuff. That's going to come in the next expansion. But they're going to collect this, and they're going to observe the player behavior and the player and the community on some level and try to address it through that next release, which is cool. And that's why you need to sort of start the drum beats on what you want out of the game now, so that they have time to work on it for the next release. And I'm sure that they have a lot of stuff already prepared, but this the balance, there's going to be another big balance change in about a year, you can expect. They'll probably do a couple hot fixes to kind of change the the ratios of numbers. So if you want them to change stuff immediately, you have to talk mostly about things like the power levels of skills. You're not going to see a complete redux of a skill. I don't think that they're gonna go that route unless nobody is playing the Crusader, which isn't what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of people playing the Crusader. I think the Crusader is a very good class. It was a good addition to the game. It was a necessary addition to the game, and I think for the most part it's a good, well-built class. But the basic skill has to get addressed. The movement speed of the class has to get addressed. The attack speed of their basic skills have to get addressed before the next release. They don't need to go make a Zeal attack right away. The class can survive as is. They just should work. They should consider increasing the attack speed of the basic attacks a little bit more. These laws, essentially what I would say is, because what I would say about the laws is the same thing that I would say about every skill in the game, is they need to go the opposite direction that they're going with cooldowns. Cooldowns should be considered a downer. I call them cooldowners because they are a downer. They slow down the action. They plant you more than you want to be planted. And the cooldowns they went from bad to worse in this game. You know, there's a skill that's a complete joke. Bombardment. 60-second cooldown,
I waited 1,500
which deals
years for
basically
this.
a
Should I
weak
return to my
meteor.
slumber?
A very weak. Well, it says it does it for 5 seconds, but I didn't notice anything impressive about this. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Really? That is actually, I have to wait another minute now for that to work again. It doesn't do the kind of damage, like when you look, 570 weapon damage. I don't know, that just seems extraordinarily low. Considering this here, that has no cooldown at all, and is doing 200%. So that means that, there, I've just beaten Bombardment. Because it does that an area, just like Bombardment, it does an area. You know, if I wanted to, okay. And guess what? I'm going to kill more monsters with these hammers than I would have with Bombardment. So this skill doesn't even get used. You know, it took the entire time that I was talking about it for it to reset. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, that's the highest damage one. Oops. That's what I meant to do. So that thing drives around until it hits an enemy. It's just kind of going in random directions now because it just didn't have an enemy to kill. But it'll drive over to the nearest enemy and lock onto it, and it does a substantial damage too. It's nothing crazy over the top, but what it does is it allows for, say, this, where I have the fire. So I'll have that going, I'm attacking, I'm doing blessed hammers, and then I plop that out. And now the damage is actually fairly reasonable. Plus I'll have these avatars going. And they're pretty cool. And they follow me around. And they last about 10 seconds. Like these two cooldowns I would probably knock down to 20 seconds. But this cooldown I would probably knock down to 30 seconds. This cooldown I would, or I'm sorry, like I think this cooldown here is fine. I hate cooldowns, and I'm the guy that always wants to get cooldowns off of here. But if you want this to work, a 60-second cooldown is sort of saying this is a spawn destroyer. This will destroy a spawn, because you'll run into 3 spawns every 60 seconds. So this thing should have a 10, a 0 at the end of it. It should be 5,700% damage, or something on that neighborhood, because it doesn't do much. It needs to be tripled or higher, the damage, and the amount of bombards that occur. The duration of the bombarding needs to last a lot longer, or the duration of the cooldown needs to be chopped down to 15 seconds or so. When you're doing the statistical analysis on the game, it might look on paper like that's enough, but when you look at the pace of an action game, 60 seconds is the equivalent of 5 minutes in that type of how people zone into the game. So when all these cooldowns are a factor of too long, and some of them are a factor of 4 too long. As I said, there's a couple that are all right. If you think about it, this thing here will kill more stuff than that bombardment will. Yeah, I guess my main complaints are that the cooldowns and the movement speed. Everything else I think is good. You're gonna have a lot of fun playing the Crusader. You're gonna have a lot of fun playing all the classes. You're just gonna run into these annoying things like, why do they do this? Why do they have to add this crap to this game? What is this fascination with cooldowns? What are the corporations of America trying to do to the kids in this country with this kind of mindset? I mean, I know that there's a lot of knuckleheads in this world, and I know the knuckleheads are getting more and more, and the fault of that are the corporations, because they control what goes on the TVs, they control what goes on in the video games for the most part, and they seem to want people to be clones and slaves. And this is what, so I guess I'm sort of talking to a wall, because they're going, yeah, exactly. That's what we want. We want them to be morons so that we can control them. So stop being that critical thinker guy and stop bitching about the fact that the game is too simple for you. Go do something else. Be an architect or something. But in my free time I like to play a game, and the fact that I have to go play a game that's 12 years old to get the satisfaction out of this style of game upsets me. There's a game called Marvel Heroes that I play, but it has some of the same problems too. It doesn't go crazy with the cooldowns like this game does. And it allows for more travel abilities. You can fly around the maps and stuff much easier than you can in this game, where you're just sort of trudging along like you're carrying a bag full of weights. But it's an MMO that's full of people, and you'll run into frame rate problems and stuff when you get into an area full of people, and it's that game is flawed just like this game is
Have
flawed.
you spoken
but
to
this game
Ori?
is flawed in
Not
much
yet.
worse ways.
What
than
does
that
one
game is
say
flawed.
to an
That game's
ancient
flawed
Nephilim
because they try to do
ghost?
too much with it.
I suppose you start with
You
hello.
get spammed enemies too much, and they push the engine and people's computers harder. Like, I try to avoid this place called Midtown Manhattan because I don't want to have to reboot the game every 15 minutes just to clear my cache. Okay, so I think that you should have a pretty decent idea of what's going on in the game now. And I think I've kept myself from being too obnoxious. I'll just call it here.